Hi, this is my third video responding to Alex O'Connor's "This Is Why I Don't Believe in God." That was the title of the video he made. The first two arguments, which I went over in my previous videos, were divine hiddenness and the geographical distribution of religious belief. And this episode is going to be dedicated to, I think, is his strongest argument that he makes, and that is the problem of evil as it is commonly expressed, but as he puts it specifically, the problem of gratuitous suffering. And he says gratuitous in this situation, in this case, meaning something like unjustified and meaningless. I think this is a better account, or a better articulation of the problem of evil. I think often the problem of evil runs into some problems, and unjustified suffering, it feels more intuitively wrong for us, and I think it is, right? We don't want any unjustified suffering or meaningless suffering. So his argument simply is that if meaningless suffering exists, then not simply that means there is no explanation for a God existing in a case where meaningless suffering exists, but simply that atheism or non-theism has a better account of this fact than a theistic belief, or in this case, a Christian religious belief. First of all, I'd like to address this small issue, or a small clarification point I would like to make. That is this idea that God has the power to stop suffering. I think he does, right? I think, of course, he has the power to stop suffering. But what I think a lot of atheists expect this means is that something like he comes down from the heavens and stops the bullets from flying, right? C.S. Lewis once postulated this idea of God staying the trigger of every gun in World War I, right? But then that wouldn't have taught us anything. Well, I also don't think God would ever stay the trigger of every gun, right? I think probably he has this power. I think in the Old Testament it's shown that he has that power. But after the New Testament, right, after Jesus is coming down to earth and of course resurrection, or death and resurrection, when has there been an account like that of the Hebrews at Mount Sinai, in which God speaks to man in such an overt way, right? When he turns rivers into blood, when he sends swarms for this explicit reason of non-religious belief, or not letting his people go, right? And my point here is not that God now doesn't exist. It's that we, as a human race, have matured. We no longer need somebody to coddle us, right? You would tell your 5-year-old, these are the rules, right? And when they messed up, you would maybe some fathers would hit their child or reprimand their child, certainly, right? Because if you don't do that, they're not going to learn, right? It's the most kind thing to do to reprimand your child. But as they grow up, right, if you have an adult child, right, your kid's 19, 20, going to college, working, well, you're not going to, maybe you'll reprimand them a little bit, but you're not going to, like, slap them, right? As a father, you would not slap your kid for doing something stupid. Not if you were the ideal father, the best father there could be, right? You would offer help. You would treat them as an adult, right? They get to make their own choices. And I think often we think of the human race as individuals completely. And I think this is a modern invention. It's a modern invention, this idea that I am myself and I'm not affected by anyone, right? That I have complete autonomy within my own self. And the reality is, you don't, right? We are all part of a larger whole. We are all part of the human race, right? No matter how smart or intelligent a person was 100 years ago, they could have never invented a computer or something, right? They could have never, made a nuclear bomb or a nuclear power plant. It just wasn't possible. Man, as a society, as collective, works together to create the world we live in today, right? We learn what we can to the best of our ability to create the groundwork for our children to have a better life, for our children to figure out something new, to do better than us. Right? We are not ourselves an island. Man is not an island, right? Of course, is very famously quoted. I just want to get that out of the way. I feel like this is a common point, but it doesn't exactly make sense to me fully. This point I would like to go over first is about the suffering of animals, right? That all the time animals are suffering, and I think this is a good point, right? The meaningless suffering of animals. Well, I think irrespective of God, first of all, irrespective of God, why we should think and try to understand, why does suffering of animals exist? Why do they feel pain at all, right? If there's no point to the pain, right? Why do they feel pain at all? Once I heard an atheist explaining, well, if God was truly loving, he would put anesthesia in the claws of the tiger, so that when he slashed at his prey, the prey wouldn't be in the suffering before they died. Okay. Well, if you did that, right? Maybe this is a bad example. I don't want to mischaracterize atheists. But if you did something like that, well, then if the prey got away, they wouldn't fear the tiger, right? It doesn't make sense, right? Our natural world wouldn't work if there wasn't pain. Again, think of the point of pain, right? Not of suffering. Suffering is an unexplainable idea. Truly, I think it's unexplainable, right? If we go to pain, though, suffering is something like a more advanced form of pain, like more long-term or more spiritual. It certainly could have a lot of meanings. But pain, getting hurt, has a meaning. It means you don't do the thing, right? And as a rabbit, okay, you got hurt, you don't do the thing. Your genes get passed on. The other animals around you, right? If you're in a herd, oh, look, he's screaming out in pain. The thing that he did was not good, right? If you have a bunch of cattle, and one of them touches the electric fence, right, and goes, oh, all of them aren't going to touch the electric fence because they all saw their friend touch the electric fence and get hurt. So none of them are going to do it. That's why suffering exists. That's why their pain exists, right? It's a very... Because evolution wouldn't work without it. Now you might say, oh, well, if you believe in God, you don't believe in evolution or something like that. But I don't know how you can tell me what I believe or what people who believe in God believe, right? I believe in both science and evolution and God, right? Both things. It's kind of... I believe truly that we can all reconcile these two ideas. Right? Science is a way of understanding our world, and God is a way of looking forward, right? Of trying to improve, of trying to reach a better world, to have moral underpinnings for how we act, right? To become better people. That's separate from understanding our world. Those are two separate ideas, two separate things, right? I like to go then to what bad is, right? Moving from animals, of course. but not to human beings, right? Although I don't think there's a massive difference. Well, obviously, I don't understand what another animal would feel like being, but because I'm not one, I only know what it feels like to be a human. So, but what is bad? What is evil? Right? He talks about unjustified or meaningless pain, meaningless suffering, right? And then often people use these words of bad. I think he uses this word bad, right? It's bad. All these bad things, right? Or even suffering. Even if you just said all this suffering in the world, right? What does that mean? Does that mean like what it's wrong? Suffering is wrong? Is that what you mean? Maybe like the rabbit. You think suffering then should be avoided, right? And that makes sense. This is a sort of gripe I have with the emotivist idea, in which you in philosophy, in which it's just like something like if you feel like something is wrong, right? Naturally, I feel like, I don't know, killing somebody's wrong. I feel like that's evil. I feel like that's bad. Well, then that's what makes it bad, is that you feel like it's bad. Okay, cool. Well, if this is, and then even, I'm sorry, first, even going, I have another thought on this emotivist idea, but even going with this idea, right? Does this mean this in this emotivist thought that this bad thing, I feel like this is bad, so it's bad? Does that mean I don't do it? Like, what does bad mean? Just that it's wrong, that it hurts me? Often I feel like philosophy, a lot of philosophers try to break the world into two, good and bad, wrong and right, right? But they don't exist. They're things philosophers came up with. Wrong, right, good, bad, right? I think, personally, God told us what was right and wrong, you know? I don't think naturally we believe that. I think that's evident in our earlier societies. I think as we evolve, we don't just evolve physically, and we haven't just evolved physically, but we've evolved spiritually, mentally, all these other ways, philosophically, right? And as we develop, we're creating better morals. We're understanding morals better, right? But we were given the groundwork. We were given the bedrock on which all of our future ideas of right and wrong should be derived. And now you're like, Kai, what are you doing? You said bad. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. And then you said there's right and wrong. My point here is that there are base wrongs, right? And from which you can derive maybe some other ideas, right? Maybe you can derive something from not killing people, or maybe not coveting what thy neighbor has, right? Oh, well then maybe I shouldn't covet what my coworker has, right? That's certainly an extrapolation of right and wrong, but bad, right? What he talks about is pain and suffering. These things don't exist. I mean, they exist in the sense that we think they are real. But this goes to my next point. Well, what's the point of our life? You know what I mean? Often I think, again, in our minds we muddy these two ideas of right and wrong, which do exist. Right and wrong do exist. And good and bad. I think maybe I think I might have even done that in this video when I said a flurry of right and wrong, good and bads. Right. Good, bad. Can most, I think, aptly be derived into feels good, feels bad. Happy, sad. Right? Happy, pain. Pleasure, pain. All these different words we could use for it, right? That's a very genetic, right? Very natural feeling, Whereas right and wrong, no matter how I feel about it, right can be painful. Right can be sacrificing myself for other people. It's right for me to sacrifice my life to save 15 people. I think we would all say, well, that's right. That doesn't make me feel good, right? I mean, maybe it might, but dying doesn't make me feel good. That's against what I genetically should do. I want to live, right? I think we all genetically have been predisposed to wanting to live, because if we didn't, we wouldn't have made it this far. We wouldn't have genetically or evolutionarily evolved to this point, right? Again, what then, excluding this world of right and wrong, what is the point of pain and suffering and happiness and pleasure? Pain and suffering teach us something, right? I have this poem I love. I actually have it here. You might think, oh, you're a little bit of a loser for having a book with you. But it's Khalil Gibran's The Poet, or sorry, the Prophet. The poet's in the book. But on pain, he said, pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. It is the bitter poison by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. Right. His point there being that when we experience pain, we learn, we grow. Right. It's the breaking of the shell that encloses our understanding. Right. Even the poem If, one of my favorite poems, right? Says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, right? Truly, triumph, disaster, pain, suffering, pleasure, joy, they are not right and wrong. They are simply telling us something about how we're experiencing the reality around us, like the rabbit. Unlike the rabbit, we have a noggin, right? We can think more. And so when we feel pain, instead of just being like, oh, avoid, right? Instead of just associating this idea with avoid, we can think about it, right? We can learn from it, right? Because that's the point of our lives, really, is to become better, right? That's why I believe in God. Because I believe God doesn't have a divine plan. I know this is an idea a lot of people have had, and it makes sense, right? But this divine plan idea, right? Like, how can you have a divine plan and free will? I think God knows what's going to happen. I think God is beyond our understanding, and I think he can see the end. I think, like a father, he has a divine hope, basically. Right? Like a father to his child. And you see him go off into the world, out of your control now. You know, you just hope they're going to be good. You hope they're going to learn. You hope they're going to have a good life. Have a fulfilling life. Right? And so, I truly believe that's God's plan for us. You know, Martin Luther King, I think actually he his final speech, right, we've been to the mountaintop, or I've been to the mountaintop rather, and mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. That speech is a lot of the reason I believe in God and how I understand God. or at least it explains, rather, how I understand God. And he talks about the promised land, right? And this is a sort of an erudite idea, out there idea, right? And then he also talks about creating the new Atlanta, the new New York, improving our world today. And I think that gets at the point of why he existed, why we exist. To improve our world today, to slowly create this promised land, right? This world of milk and honey. And a lot of people have theorized the similar idea, right? That our purpose is to create heaven on earth. I mean, I think so, to some extent. I think we don't know where that end is, really. I don't think we... It's not as if we understand completely what heavenness, as some philosophers would talk about, right? What is essence of heaven, and how can we derive enough of that is, right? We don't know where that is. Platonic ideas, right? We don't know what heaven looks like. All we can do is continue to try to improve, right? All we can do is continue to create the new New York, right? The new Atlanta, new Jackson, Mississippi, as he says. To create the new world, right? Make sure that the world at the end of our lives is a better one than the one at the beginning of our lives. Don't want to be afraid of pain. Again, I want to go back to this idea, right? Pain is not just the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding, right? It's learning, it's growing. I think a simple way to understand this idea is, why do you go to the gym? Right? I just got back from the gym. And it hurt really, really bad. I pushed myself very hard, because I think that's the point of going to the gym, right? But I was in pain. I was in pain. And mentally, right? Genetically, my natural reaction, my psychological reaction. Wow, this is bad. I should avoid this. I shouldn't do this. Even before going to the gym, I told myself, I don't want to do this. Right? I don't want to go right now. I'd rather stay in bed and relax. Right? But I know it's keeping me healthy. I know it's teaching me lessons. I know it's helping me create more discipline in my life, becoming a better person, hopefully. Right? Again, why do you read a book? Right? Some people enjoy reading, and I think it can be entertaining, but like, why would you ever read philosophy? I find philosophy interesting, very interesting, but I still struggle to read it all often. Right? It's like, what am I even... all of these ideas and all of these thoughts, why am I reading? I could be listening to a podcast. I could be watching a video. If I could get more ideas faster that way. Again, it's sitting, feeling almost like you're wasting your time. But then again, we all like having read things. You know what I mean? Reading things helps you sit with ideas longer. Helps you understand them more fully. Also, in books, there's more ideas than often someone can fully articulate in a sit-down interview. Also, right? You have to read Plato's dialogues. I guess not Plato's dialogue. Well, the dialogues he wrote, rather. If you want to truly understand what he thought, right? Of course, you should also listen to somebody who studied Plato and has a PhD in Platonic ideas and philosophy, right? But you have to read these same words he wrote. again, is putting yourself in pain to improve who you are. I don't know. I think we, again, are evolving, again, as a society and genetically. And I want to pose this one question for atheists in this atheistic world, right? If you simply believe in these genetic ideas of evolution, right? And I think, again, you think only in good and bad, not in right and wrong, not in these absolutes, but in good and bad, and then say good and bad are right and wrong, you know. But you don't, rather what I mean is you don't ascribe right and wrong to something beyond your own conception, right, beyond your own relative idea. Then what is the point of our lives, right? Someone like Camus or Sartre would say it's your life is meaningless, but you create your own meaning. That to me doesn't make sense. Like I should rephrase. It makes sense in the sense that I understand the words. I understand the world, or the theoretical world they're talking about. But when I try to apply that to my life, it doesn't work. Choose your meaning. Okay. My meaning is to play video games. My meaning is to sit around. My meaning is... okay, right? No, it's not true. My meaning isn't to do these things. Human beings all have one common meaning, right? It is, again, to make a better world. There is a psychological drive, or a drive people express, at least, I should say. One that cannot be explained completely by nature, by evolution. And it is one not just to understand our world, right? But to sacrifice for those we love. It's to suffer, to learn, to grow, to, again, try to make a better world. We all have this drive, right? Which seems almost separate from our drive for food, water, shelter, and to continue the species. You know? I think that is the drive that, to me, God best explains. That, to me, being part of a larger whole best explains. The last thought I want to make sure I articulate clearly is, again, I think I may have said it before, but you are not an island. You are part of a larger whole. A brotherhood of man, as some may say, right? In the beginning, we all spoke one language and had one understanding, and we had the power of God. It is through not understanding each other that our problems derive. Seems truly the point. Often is just to understand more. And we should be privileged and feel privileged to be alive in a time in which we can develop such thoughts, in which our ancestors have sacrificed over and over again, so that we can now sit here and think about ideas and improve our society through philosophical and theological understanding. I simply hope that we all, and you all, do your best to help create a better world. Thank you.